Howdy, how are you? I'm good. Thanks for asking. Well, I've never reviewed a TCL product before of any kind, so why not start with their flagship soundbar system, the Q85H, released May 2024. For context, the Q85H stands atop the Q75H, which I believe to be the exact same product minus the surrounds. The Q85H is an 860 watt 7.1.4 channel soundbar system with the suggested retail price of $1,000. That is currently selling in multiple places for $600, which is the price I paid. That's a significant, hard to ignore rubbernecking price drop in just a few months for this feature, I don't want to say generous, but feature ample soundbar system. Is TCL just a master of efficiency, able to manifest excellence for less? Or is there something maybe a little disappointing going on? Maybe something in the middle. We'll explore together. Setup. It was boring, which is exactly what you want. Plug in all the components and get the bar connected to the TV via the eARC port. TCL recommends that the sub be placed beside the soundbar, no more than 3 meters away, and that your sitting distance fall between 2 and 3.5 meters from the bar. Ideally, the surrounds are placed on the correct side, goobers, and angled 45 degrees behind you, again between 2 and 3.5 meters. Well, isn't that just a lovely tale of a dream room? My advice, try to get the surrounds at ear height and get them behind you and facing you the best you can, even if that means facing you off to the side. The Q85H does come with a soundbar mount if you fancy it as a permanent fixture. After you've connected everything, you can start listening and controlling the system with the remote. If you're into that control the whole world with your phone life, you'll need to download the TCL Home app. To use the app, you need to log in or create an account. They ask you for all the normal stuff, including your birthday, grandma's social security number, the length of your first kiss, and email. You only need to tell the truth on the email, as they do send a verification code. Once you set up or log into your account, press plus and add your system. The Q85H should show up with little delay. Select it and you're off to the races. Eventually, you are prompted to use the AI Sonic feature, which is, well, not so much a room correction feature, but rather your favorite potato chip munching location correction feature. The process is truncated, consisting of 2 3-second long, louder than you would hope, white noise sound. The first noise burst is to calibrate your phone's microphone, and the second to correct the sound in your preferred position. Design and build. You know, for a $600 kit, it's pretty rizzy, with the bar's front and sides covered with a stylish but business-like dark gray cloth with Ray-Dan's branding on the right side, along with a large enough to make it readable disappearing display on the front left side, which is refreshing. The top does show out the most with a dramatic eclipsing reflective glass material. TCL calls it black crystal glass, which is a mockable term, but credit where it's due, as it does have a high-quality Bose soundbar feel to it. It really defines the bar style, winking to the legacy Ray-Dan's curved sound reflector mechanism found in older bars like this, but not in the Q85H, which I'll dig into more in the driver array section. When the bar is turned on, a blue curved string light under the glass appears. The length of the blue line adjusts to the volume level, which is a clever way to visualize volume for those poor souls hovering over the bar, adjusting volume. The blue light does turn off after a few moments after adjustments are made. The remainder of the top is made of agreeably high-quality dark gray brushed faux metal plastic with grill holes on both sides to support the upward firing drivers. And in the middle are tactile pushy buttons laid out horizontally. In the back are the ports, which are laid out accessibly. Bottom line, the bar is well built and has a sense of professionalism and class in its style. Bravo. Moving on, the surrounds. They are less flashy than the bar. The good news, I'd say they're not going to be the soundbar rear speakers that challenge your marriage like, say, the Sonos Era 300. They're fairly tame in presentation. The front, back, and sides are covered in cloth, and the top grille shares the same plastic material as the bar. The mounting hole, status light, power port, and sync button are on the back, leaving nothing on the bottom but rubber feet. The surrounds feel pretty decent. No complaints. The sub. It's the point when you're going to start feeling a little bit nervous when unpacking. The sub has been diligent with its low-carb plan. Sub light, for sure. So typically, the sub weighs at minimum 60 to 70% more than the bar. The Sonos sub, for example, weighs 2.5 times the arc weight. In this case, the bar weighs 11.88 pounds, which is on the light side of the normalish range, and the sub weighs 13.42 pounds, so merely 13% heavier. Its appearance is fine. You got an admittedly unique style choice with reflective glass covering the whole front, which, well, why not be the first? And there's a whole lot of faux wood grained plastic running uninterrupted along the top and sides. If you venture to the back, you will find the noisemaker, the 6.5-inch woofer. There it is, doing its 6.5-incher woofer thing. The sub's physicality, considering weight and woofer size, is whatever the midpoint of meh and deep sadness is. One hopes this is it's not the size that matters, but how you use it type of situation. The drivers. If there's just one thing you know about me, it's that I like to get nude pictures of bars and then look at them with you on the internet. The US purchase site is withholding in this regard with 0 nude pictures. The specifications are mysterious, doling out bits of information like built-in center channel, tweeters, and upward firing drivers. The TCL global site is far more expressive, though still more vague on the driver specs than I would prefer. The basics. There are 15 drivers on this 7.1.4 channel system. The bar is a 5.0.1 channel speaker, and each surround a 1.0.1 channel speaker. On the bar, there's a left, center, and right channel, along with side-firing surround channels and height channels. There are 2 drivers for each channel in the front, a woofer-tweeter pair, and the rest of the channels just a single driver, which I believe are all woofers. While this bar does not have the dramatic Ray Dan's bar width reflector, it retains that branding with this system through its use of, quote, precisely calibrated reflectors and angle drivers instead of digital processing, offering a more natural experience and a wider soundstage. Now, there is this unusual name, 2D Coral. You might encounter it somewhere, but it's not listed on the US buying site. The name is TCL's Q Symphony. I mean, what else would you call it? 2D Coral enabled TVs and soundbars can play simultaneously in an enhanced greater than the sum of their parts way. It's advertised as extending the soundstage, supercharging immersion, and improving vocals, etc. I would say that generally I find TV integration to be more useful for budget bars that have more sound limitations than legit flagship bars. I'd say just based on price, the Q85H is classified as a budget bar. Ports. eARC. Sure, but it's dragged down with a dusty HDMI 2.0 input that can't even pass 4K 120. The Q85H does pass Dolby Vision, but some of those gamer goodies like variable refresh rate and auto low latency mode are absent, at least in the US, due to that HDMI 2.0 input. If you're tempted to play music via USB on a soundbar, make sure to do it after marriage so it's harder for her to leave due to your extreme weirdness. It's a very mediocre port offering as far as soundbars go, but maybe exactly average given the price. Audio codecs, all the Dolbys and DTSs. I don't see LPCM explicitly listed, but plugging my Apple TV into the bar led to expected behaviors like Atmos. Sound adjustments, not a whole heck of a lot. You do have the option to run AI Sonic, the listening position correction feature. You can optimize and save up to 3 positions. There are 6 EQ presets: movie, music, voice, game, sports, and standard. Like whipped cream, nuts, and cherries, there are, let's say, 3 overlay effects: sound enhancement, voice enhancement, you can double up on that if you wish, and night mode. All of these effects can be activated simultaneously and alongside any EQ mode. It's quirky. And quirky is not the same thing as kinky. Settle down. In terms of manual EQ adjustments, you have low, mid, and high for bass and treble. No adjustments for the mids, sadly. So just 9 possible manual EQ states. Controls: bar, remote, and app, which I've been known to call the trifecta. On the bar, you'll find power, source, Bluetooth, and volume up, down. Nothing too fancy. The remote, it's not going to rearrange your long johns. It's a really simple controller that gives you access to all the sound adjustments. It's pebble-shaped and smoothed, so it's easy on the hands. The buttons are nice and rounded as well. But ultimately, it feels kind of cheap, so very much in the soundbar remote tradition. Line of sight is not required. The TCL Home app, it's very simple. There's a main page with the main controls like power, source, volume, and AI Sonic selections. The sound adjustment page handles the remaining sound adjustment options. The app, it works fine. I don't think we fought even once. Connectivity and other miscellaneous things. This bar can connect to the internet, though the interplay with the internet is not as encompassing as you would hope. For instance, there is no Ethernet port. The app connects to the bar over Bluetooth, not Wi-Fi. OTA updates occur through the app, not a bar internet direct connection. AirPlay 2 is supported, but you gotta go out of your way to do some funky steps to get it to work. And there are no streaming direct to bar from server applications like Chromecast, Spotify Connect, and Tidal Connect. The Bluetooth version is 5.1 and the Q85H is Roku TV ready, meaning if you have a Roku TV, you will have enhanced access to the soundbar settings with the Roku TV remote. Sound quality. I'm going to say this as nicely as I can. It's bad. Disclaimer: if you're into this system, keep on rocking on. Don't let me yuck your yum. I'm actually quite happy when people find soundbars they like, regardless of my impression. That being said, the primary word that lingered in my head after a week of moderate use is unpleasant. I consistently picked up on an unsettling instability, a disproportionality. It's as though they found some of the least pleasant frequencies, promoted them a bit, and, not dramatically but noticeably, suppressed the more pleasant, warm bathwater temperature tones that give the sound depth. This phenomenon was far more noticeable in loud, busy scenes, but regularly I perceived an unsettling quietness in vocals, low register instruments, think cello, and sound effects that share frequency space with, say, distant thunder and approaching thudding footsteps on a wood floor. The mix just never hit the mark for me. One particular oddity is that background sound, so atmospherics like wind, will with some regularity treat itself as foreground sounds, which necessarily underemphasizes the vocals or other more important noises that are meant to be forefront. It's not all the time nor necessarily glaring, but I noticed it often enough for it to be distracting and annoying, especially when I'm wearing my reviewer ears. In some degree of desperation, I played my Atmos favorites. You know, the films that give the system the ammunition to show off a bit if other formats are playing a bit tame. So, Six Underground, Transformers, Top Gun, Dune. It didn't work. The uncomfortable mixes were still there. They were just more spatially distributed. If you're hoping that sound adjustments can save the day, well, stop wasting your energy on hope. I did not find sound adjustments particularly helpful, not even the AI sonic feature, which I sensed had a limited but perhaps deleterious impact on the sound. I suppose if you were bribing me with a warm chocolate chip cookie, I would say I lean towards movie mode, as I sensed maybe it helped a little on the sound separation and seemed to give the bass a bit more confidence. Definition, perhaps. The soundstage is decent, fine, not extraordinary. Perhaps the Ray Dance-inspired engineering helped some in this regard. The vertical effects are above average, certainly for the price. I frequently perceive sounds coming from above and beyond the physical width of the bar. The rear height effects were less pronounced, though the horizontal directional effects sounded sharp and precise. The sub, well, I think it meets or maybe even outperforms expectations, which admittedly is low. The personality really peaks around 60 Hz, which often left me wanting, but yes, while there is a drop-off after 60 Hz and there is some language on the global site about officially supporting 45 Hz, the cliff really goes steep after 30 Hz. So it's not as if you're completely denied that lower bass presence with the sub. The sub performance really felt mixed. At times, I thought it sounded reasonably tight and responsive, but in more intense, complicated scenes, I often heard the sub getting overextended and devolving towards mush, just kind of outputting general low noises. Now, I stand by my subjective assessment, but I will share the frequency curve I measured, as I think it could be infotaining. So here is the curve with volume at 20 and standard EQ mode with AI sonic off and bass and treble set to mid. No other effects were active. To be clear, the primary characteristics of this curve persisted regardless of settings and room correction. Okay, so where I speculate the sound really undermines itself is in the juxtaposition of this 5 decibel dip here, let's say starting at 200 Hz, persisting to about 700 with an exaggerated 700 to 1000 frequency range that is immediately followed by a rather steep 10 decibel drop off in the highs, which likely worked to further accentuate the high mids. As you can see, the bass level does peak at 60 Hz, which was my impression. There is still some life at 30 Hz, but it fades quick if you go any lower. I think this graphic explains to some degree why when watching Furiosa, I sensed the booms and deep engine growls were somehow both not low enough and too loud relative to the rest of the mix. And why, especially when there are simultaneous sound effects, I often sensed suppressed volume between, say, deep bullet impacts and that eerie metallic screeching sound prominent in Mad Max movie scores. Dialogue clarity is probably not as bad as what you're imagining from my description of the sound, but there are moments that it's oddly quiet that can draw your attention in an unpleasant way. Music. You know, by the time I switched over after listening to a lot of movies, I was expecting to say something like, music performance goes beyond not clicking. It misses the whole barn by a country mile. Music missed like a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest, or however those phrases go. But my experience was less dramatic than that. When listening to relatively simple chill songs, so let's say Billy Joel, Paul Simon, I was sanguine, not delighted, not in despair either. I still sensed that the sound was a little thin in the middle, but the sub did an okay job keeping up with simple bass lines. But yes, it's true, as a whole, I'm not a fan of the sound. I hardly ever encounter a product where my sound evaluation is so one-sided and negative. So yes, I may have poo-pooed your favorite soundbar ever or blew up your cart and the fantasies tied to it. But like my wife says when spending too much time in the comments section, you're not their mom. I'm not your mom. The Q85H started at $1,000 and fell to $600 in pretty short order. The system specs read like 1,000, I'd say, but the sound is just not there to back it up, especially with the Q990C crushing anything that gets close. If you're watching this, you may very well be in the market for a $600 to $700 soundbar system, and all I managed to do was reduce your options. As an alternative to the Q85H, I suggest you consider the Polk Magnify Max AX SR. You can watch my review. Don't worry, it's not sponsored. It's really one of my favorite bars, budget or not. And it's selling miraculously for under $700 from a number of retailers. The bar has remarkable channel separation coupled with a satisfying, rich sound profile. And the 10-inch sub is a performer, especially for the price. It's got 3 HDMI inputs and supports Dolby and DTS, along with AirPlay, Chromecast, and Spotify Connect. It's hard to find all those things together on a soundbar at any price point. A completely undiscovered gem, in my opinion. If Polk just sounds like a weird, unfamiliar name, Samsung puts together a decent package in this price range, but the sub will likely disappoint. If Samsung is dead to you, Klipsch is doing some good stuff with their new Flexus line. If you really want the Q85H and I made you sad, do more research. Maybe my take on this bar is an outlier, even though it's correct. Please subscribe and help me reach my 40,000 sub goal by 2025, so when some bratty kid in the neighborhood comes at me hard saying, "I have 167 subscribers," I can go, "You think that's a lot? I have 40,000. So take that. Put that in your backpack and carry it. Tell your dad his mowing is worse than a teenager watching TikTok." Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.